Hare Krishna. Can you hear my voice? Am I audible? Okay, let's start. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. We have been discussing from the 14th chapter of the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the last chapter discussing the story of Rahuguna and Jadabharata, the conversation between Rahuguna and Jadabharata. So here, if you see, the 13th chapter discussed about the forest of material enjoyment, where Jadabharata, through an allegorical story, was presenting the difficulties of samsara. How samsara is uh, very distressful, by giving an allegorical presentation where the main protagonist of this story is a merchant who enters into this forest of material enjoyment, enters into this forest, and while trying to enjoy in this forest, meets with lot of obstacles. So he explains this just to indicate, just to emphasize the futility of material pursuits in this material world. So he does not directly uh, talk about this mm, forest of material enjoyment. He actually gives it in the present in the form of an allegory. He presents it in the form of an allegorical story, and uh, Rahuguna understands it. Rahuguna thanks Jadabharata um, for actually uh, bringing him out of the realm of false ego. But Parikshit Maharaj feels that either he really does not understand by the arrangement of the Lord or for the purpose of others. He asks this question that, but this allegorical story is little difficult to understand. This is not very clear. So can you please, definitely it is clear that he gives this allegorical story to illustrate the futility of material enjoyment. But beyond that, it is not very clear what this exactly is talking about. So can you please uh, tell what exactly is this whole thing about? Hmm. So in response to this, uh, Shukadev Goswami is going to um, decode this allegorical story for us, and that's what he has been doing. And Shukadev Goswami says that as I mentioned before, the blue shlokas are the 13th chapter shlokas, and the red shlokas are the explanation of those 13th chapter shlokas, which are given in the 14th chapter. Okay, so that is why the blue and red color combination. Uh, I'm just clarifying it very clearly here. So yeah, so the jiva, using the doors of the six senses, wanders around in samsara. So it is the jiva, or the jiva who is interested in material enjoyment. That jiva is described as the vanik, or the um, merchant. And the various obstacles that he experiences in enjoying samsara, in experiencing samsara, is described in the form of mosquitoes and bees and all that. So then he explains who are the six plunderers, you know, who is the bad advisor, what is that jackal uh, which enters his house and plunders the inattentive merchant. He explains this. Then he describes about, you know, the merchant entering into a dense bower of shrubs, grass, and vines, and how he is bitten by mosquitoes. And sometimes he sees a city in the sky, and sometimes he sees ghosts moving quickly like a meteor. Okay. And then Shukadeva Goswami decodes that analogy also, that allegory also. And then he talks about thinking that the house, water, and wealth are his. He runs here and there in the forest, and sometimes covered with dirt raised by a whirlwind. His eyes are blinded by dust, and he does not know the directions. So he explains what is this whirlwind. The whirlwind is his attraction to the opposite sex, and the dust is the lust that he feels for her. And he does not see the directions, means he is not. He forgets that the sense devatas are watching him, and every act of his goes into his karmic account. He does not. He just gets distracted by that, because of the presence of the other um, opposite sex. And then he talks about when sometimes his mind is disturbed by the sound of the owls, and sometimes it is disturbed by the invisible crickets. And sometimes, afflicted by hunger, he takes shelter of some impious trees, or sometimes he runs after a mirage. And that is decoded by Shukadeva Goswami. He says that the owls are the visible, those who criticize him on his face, and the crickets are the invisible people who do backbiting, you know, who talk behind his back, criticize him behind the back. And then he talks about the afflicted by hunger is desiring wealth. Desiring wealth, sometimes he approaches um, people who are very, very impious, who have accumulated wealth in very impious ways. So even though he may get a donation or some help from them, that donation is heavily karmically tainted, and he gets a part of that karma. So that is compared to the impious trees or the poisoned trees, where the fruit looks very attractive, but when you eat that fruit, it it afflicts the body. And then he talks about the mirage. Mirage indicates wealthy people who are not charitably disposed. So when he approaches them for some help, they don't help him. So that is like running after a mirage. Okay. Then he discusses about how sometimes he jumps into waterless rivers and breaks his limbs. Okay. And sometimes without food, he desires food from the relatives, and sometimes encountering a forest fire, he becomes burnt by the fire. And when his wealth is stolen by Yakshas, he further falls into despair. All of these are obstacles for him in this forest, and the forest is samsara. So, here jumping into waterless rivers is compared to um, false pretenders who are pretending as spiritualists. So he goes to them, and they gives only suffering in his life, and in this life and in next life, which is compared to jumping into a dry river bed. So you think that there is lot of water, but when you jump, there is hardly any water, so you break your bones. So this is like approaching false spiritualists who may promise some solution to the problems, but they make it more and more complex. And sometimes not having food, he approaches his relatives, means not being able to support himself by giving pain to others. He gives trouble to his own father or son, whom he regards as insignificant. Okay. And sometimes, and then he describes what is this forest fire. The forest fire is entering the house. Okay. He enters the house, which is like a forest fire, thinking that he will get some relief, but the members of the house only kind of create a lot of problems for him, which is like getting burnt by the forest fire. And that fire is the fire of lamentation and depression. And who are these yakshas who steal his wealth? They are the government officials who are like rakshasas made by crooked time. He appears dead without symptoms of life. Then it is mentioned that with his possessions stolen by enemies, sometimes with a depressed heart and lamentation, in great bewilderment, he faints. And sometimes entering an imaginary city, he enjoys for a moment as if fully satisfied. Okay. So um, it is mentioned that sometimes he experiences the happiness of a dream. Uh, he experience that is mentioning the entering the Gandharva city is compared to dream. In dream, he enjoys. Okay. And then it is mentioned that while walking in this forest, his feet becomes pierced by thorns as he wanders about, and wanting to climb a hill, he becomes disappointed step by step. Pained by the fire of digestion, living with his family members, he becomes angry at his family members. So, what is the pebbles and stones which pierce his feet? So he says that desiring to take the responsibility for performing elaborate household. Oh, is climbing the mountain. Climbing a mountain is, desiring to the responsibility of performing elaborate household sacrifices. Uh, and while trying to do that, which he need not do, it is not it is not needed. But because the neighbors are doing, others are doing, he becomes very uh, agitated, and he thinks that I should also do, even though he should be ideally asking the scriptures whether these things are needed to be done. But he just sees, oh, the other person is doing, so I will also do. Okay. So that pinprick that he feels because of his competition with his neighbors and other fellow citizens is compared to the pricking of the thorns and pebbles. Sometimes, having lost all fortitude by the intolerable fire of digestion in his body, sometimes he becomes angry at his family members. There is no allegory involved here, it is a direct mention. Sometimes he is swallowed by a python and he loses his consciousness, and sometimes, not woken up by his friends, he is bitten by a snake in the forest while he sleeps. Sometimes, in blindness, he falls into a dark blind well. What is this? So, being swallowed by the python is swallowed by the python of sleep, okay, which is absorbed in the deepest ignorance. Okay. He lies down in the deserted forest like a neglected dead body. He does not know anything. So that is complete deep sleep. And sometimes his teeth of pride are broken by the bites of snakes in the form of evil men. So the snakes are compared to the evil men. They come and bite him. And unable to sleep, his consciousness dwindling because of troubled heart, he falls like a blind man into a blind well. All of this completely bewilders him and he falls into the blind well of complete disturbance. But sometimes, searching for a little honey, he is bitten by bees. So, disgraced by the biting of the bees, he finally, with great difficulty, obtains the honey, only to be stolen by someone else. Okay. So, this is compared to his uh, mm, his searching for honey indicates his searching for another person's wife. Uh, and being bitten by the bees is compared to the um, how he is being chastised and beaten up by the family members and others. Okay, so that is compared to biting of the bees. But sometimes he bribes them, or sometimes he overpowers them and takes that woman away. And then what happens? Only for the because that woman itself is not a very woman of good character. Someone else steals that woman. Okay, so that is what happens. Okay, so this is where we ended our discussion last session. So let us continue this discussion further and see how far we can get today. So today will be a full session till 8:45. Till 8:45 we will take today's session. क्वचिच्च शीतात् तपवातवर्ष प्रतिक्रियां कर्तुमनीश आस्ते क्वचिन्मितो विपणन्यच्च किञ्चित् विद्वेषमृच्छत्युत वित्तशाट्यात्. So he says, sometimes Anisha Aste, he is unable. Again, this is the 13th chapter verse where it is mentioned. Sometimes he is unable to counteract the cold, heat, wind, and rain. And sometimes, while transacting business with others, he gains their enmity because of cheating them for wealth. Again, I don't think there is much allegory involved here. There is no allegory involved here. While buying and selling because of cheating for money, he develops enemies. Okay. So, but still there is an explanation given by Srila Shukadeva Goswami in the 14th chapter. He says, Kvachitcha Shitavatadi Aneka Adi Adidhaivika Bhautikatmiyanam Dashanam Prati Nivarane Akalpaha Duranta Chintaya Vishanna Aste. He says, unable to counteract the conditions of suffering arising from body, mind, and other beings, cold and wind, he becomes depressed by severe anxieties. So this is not there is no allegory involved here. It is direct verse. Okay, direct verse. There is no allegory involved here. So this verse explains 5:13:11. Dashanam means the conditions of suffering. Kvachin mito vyavaharan yat kinchit dhanam anyebhyo va काकिनिका मात्रम अपि अपहरन यत् किंचिद्वा विद्वेषम एति वित्तशाट्यात्. Sometimes whatever he transacts during business or whatever small amount he takes from others, kakinika matram api, small amount also he may take from others, creates enmity because of the tendency to cheat for wealth. It creates enmity because of the tendency to cheat for wealth. So this verse explains the mutual transactions mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:13:11. Whatever small amount one transacts during business or by taking even 20 cowries from others creates enmity. It creates enmity. Okay, just give me 1 second. So 20 cowries. Cowries is a unit of time. Sorry, unit of money. A very old unit of money. Nowadays, this unit is not used. So, okay. Then Okay, then he continues. So this is again 13th chapter verse. Anyonya vitta vyatisanga vriddha vairanu bandho vivahan mitascha advanyamushmin urukrishra vitta badopasargair viharan vipannaha. Living with increased enmity because of business transactions for wealth, he marries. Wandering on the path, he almost dies because of the great difficulties, loss of wealth, and sickness that he encounters. I think this is also not, there is not much, um, you can say, there is not much allegory involved here. This is more direct. So he explains this in in this chapter. He says, Advani amushmin ima upasargas tata sukha dukkha raga dvesha bahya abhimana pramada unmada shoka moha lobha matsarya irshya avamana kshut pipasadi vyadi janma jara maranadayaha. On that path, there are misfortunes such as happiness, distress, attachment, hatred, fear, pride, inattention, insanity, lamentation, illusion, greed, dissatisfaction, envy, dishonor, hunger, thirst, anxiety, disease, birth, old age, and death, which is all mentioned here as uh, okay. This is a generic this thing. So this he says this verse explains the words. Wandering on the path, he almost dies because of the great difficulties, loss of wealth, and sickness he encounters. So this is the explanation of this. Okay. Then it is mentioned in the 13th chapter we saw in the allegorical story. Sometimes the living entity in the forest of material existence takes shelter of creepers, desiring to hear the chirping of the birds in those creepers. Being afraid of a group of lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures. Again, what is this allegory? He says, Kwapi devamaya striya bhujalata upagudah praskanna viveka vignano yad vihara griha arambakula hridayah tad ashraya avasakta suta duhitri kalatra भाषित अवलोक विचेष्टित अपहृत हृदय आत्मानम अजितात्मा अपरे अंधे तमसी प्रहिणोति. So he says, what does it mean to take shelter of creepers? And what does it mean to desire to hear the chirping of the birds in those creepers? Who are those lions in the forest that he is afraid of? And who are the cranes and herons and vultures whom he befriends? Okay, so that we are going to see now. He says, sometimes, so the creeper is generally the women are compared to creepers. Okay, sometimes embraced by the creeper like arms of a woman who is Maya herself, he loses discrimination and knowledge. And with heart absorbed in building a house for her pleasure, yet vihara griha aramba akula hridayah, his heart becomes stolen by the words, glances, and actions of sons, daughters, and his son's wife, who are all under his wife's shelter. Okay. So he loses discrimination, embraced by the creeper like arms of a woman who is Maya herself. He loses discrimination and knowledge, and with heart absorbed in building a house for her pleasure. So somehow I want to build a house for her pleasure. His heart becomes stolen by the words, glances, and actions of sons, daughters, and sons' wife. So, which is compared to the chirping of the birds. He's being completely enamored by the words of his children and daughter-in-law, son-in-law, like that. Okay. Uncontrolled in mind, he hurls himself into the greatest insurmountable darkness. So this is taking shelter of the creeper with a desire to hear the chirping of the birds. The chirping of the birds is the words spoken by his relatives, sons and daughters and son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, like that. This verse explains taking shelter of creepers mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:13-16. Taking shelter of the creepers means he is embraced by a woman who is none other than the Lord's Maya. In this state, he loses discrimination and knowledge. His mind becomes absorbed in building a house for enjoyment with his wife. His heart is stolen away by the words, actions, and glances of daughters, sons, and sons' wife under the wife's shelter. So then he says, Kadachit Ishwarasya Bhagavato Vishnos Chakrat Paramanu Adi Dvipararda Apavarga Kala Upalakshanat Parivartitena Vayasa Ramhasa Harata Brahma Trina Stambadinam Bhutanam Animishato Mishatam Vitrasta Hridayas Tam Eva Ishwaram Kalachakra Nijayudam Sakshad Bhagavantam Yajna Purusham Anadritya Pakanda Devataha Kanka Gridra Baka Vata Praya Arya Samaya Parihritaha Sanketyena Abhidatte. Sanketyena Abhidatte. Okay. Sometimes, so now he has to explain what is the lion whom he becomes fearful of, and who are the herons and vultures and cranes whom he takes shelter of. Okay. So here he says, sometimes afraid of the chakra of the Supreme Lord, which represents time, from the smallest unit Paramanu up to the lifespan of Brahma, Dvipararda, and which turns quickly through all the ages of life, destroying the lives of all beings from Brahma to grass, who are absorbed in their material affairs. The Jiva does not respect the Lord of sacrifice. Sakshat Bhagavantam Yajna Purusham Anadritya Tam Kala Chakra Nijayadam, who holds a chakra in his hand also. But instead, Sanketyena Abhidatte Pakanda Devataha. But instead he accepts impostors, Arya Samaya Parihritaha, who are devoid of proper conduct, and they are compared to Kanka, Gridra, Baka, Vata, Praya, herons, vultures, and cranes as objects of worship. So these are not very glorious birds. These are not very glorious birds. Hmm. So here he says that so the lion is the time. So being afraid of that lion, he goes and takes shelter of uh, somehow he's thinking that okay, somehow I want to escape time. Escape time means escape death and other dangers, or escape karma, because time carries karma to the person. So he wanting to escape karma and the suffering that comes from karma, he goes and takes shelter instead of surrendering to the Supreme Lord who has another chakra, the Sudarshan chakra in his hand, who can at once cut this Kala chakra. But instead of surrendering to the Supreme Lord, he goes and takes shelter of herons, vultures, and cranes who are actually pashandis, who are false spiritualists, who promise various things. Okay, I will do this for you. I will do this for you. You can easily overcome, um, all the problems of karma. I will give you a solution and all that. We take shelter of them of instead of taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here he says uh, that this verse explains the sentence, being afraid of a group of lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures in Bhagavatam verse 5:13-16. In fear of the chakra, he accepts the impostors as worshipable along with their imaginary scriptures. You know, they present some scriptures also. So some imaginary scriptures. Um, the chakra is characterized prominently by time, from the smallest fraction of time to the lifespan of Brahma. Another version has Dviparardha Apavargat Kalopalakshanat. The chakra is the very form of time. It quickly destroys the living beings from Brahma to grass by its turning with the passing of age from youth to old age. They do not notice this. They do not notice this. The genitive used for the accusative case or the word life can be supplied. The chakra destroys the life of the living beings. The chakra is vigilant, animishataha. Arya Samaya Parihritaha means they are devoid of proper behavior. Okay. Then he says, in the 13th chapter again, another in the allegorical story it was mentioned. Tair vanchito hamsakulam samavishan arochayan sheelam upaiti vanaran tajjati rasena sunirvritendiyah paraspara udvikshana vismritavadihi. So cheated by these cranes. So the cranes are the false spiritualists. Cheated by them, he contacts a group of swans, but not satisfied with their behavior, he approaches some monkeys. His senses joyful because of the pleasure arising from them. He gazes at their faces and forgets about death. Hmm. So we have to see uh, who are the swans whom he comes in touch with, and who are the monkeys whom he is enjoying with, and what is gazing at their face and all that. Okay. Here, Srila Shukadev Goswami decoding this uh, allegory, he says, Yada Pakandibir Atmavanchitais Tair Uruvanchito Brahmakulam Samavasam Stesham Sheelam Upanayanadi Shrauta Smarta Karmanushta Anena Bhagavato Yajna Purushasya Aradhanam Eva Tad Arochayan Shudrakulam Bhajate Nigamachare Ashuddhito Yasya Mituni Bhavaha Kutumba Baranam Yata Vanarajatehe. He says, Yada Pakandibir Tair Uruvanchitaha. When the person is greatly cheated by these pashandis, these false spiritualists, Atmavanchitaihi, who are cheating themselves, Brahmakulam Samavasan. Brahmakulam. So, cheated by these cranes, herons, and vultures, he approaches a group of swans, it is mentioned. So, who are those swans? The swans are the Brahmanas. But Arochayan, but he has no taste. Tesham Sheelam for their way of life. And what is their way of life? Bhagavato Yajna Purushasya Aradhanam. They are interested in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but looking at them, he is not very impressed. He is not very excited about having their association because he is not very excited by their activities of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how do they worship the Supreme Lord? Upanayanadi, Shrauta, Smarta, Karma, Anushtanena. Various Anushtanas are practices and samskaras. He was not very interested in doing all those things. He said, Arey, too much work, why I have to do all these things? He is not very interested. So then what he does? Shudra kulam bhajate. He then joins the Shudras. Okay. And then what happens? Nigamachare ashudditaha. In that group, he performs what is forbidden in the scriptures, such as mituni bhavaha, such as forbidden sexual union, kutumba baranam yata vanar jatehe, simply supporting a family like the apes. So when the person is greatly challenged by the imposers, he approaches the brahmanas, but he is not very excited by their lifestyle. What is that? So many samskaras and all these things. It is not for me. So then he approaches monkeys. So the monkeys are actually the Shudras. And with them, he engages in forbidden sexual union, simply supporting a family like the apes. So he says, this verse explained the phrase cheated by the cranes. He contacts a group of swans, that section. The impostors cheat themselves since they accept a path of their own imagination. One who follows them is cheated more. On some pretext of offense, they kick him out of their group after taking all his money. So these imposters, the false spiritualists, they take all his money and they kick him out. They take all his money and they kick him out. Okay. Then, so he says, Nigama Achare Ashudditaha means performing what are listed as impure actions in the scriptures. Mituni Bhavaha means marriage by paying a price for a widow or rejected wife or another. Okay. So further, he continues explaining this same verse. Tatrapi निरवरोधः स्वैरेण विहरन् अतिकृपणबुद्धिः अन्योन्यमुखनिरीक्षणादीना ग्राम्यकर्मणैव विस्मृतकालावधिः. In the company of those Shudras, without the restriction of rules, independently, with miserly intelligence, forgetting that death will come, he enjoys through material activities while looking at the faces of other similar people. So now that he has come in the association of the Shudras, without the restriction of rules, because the Shudras don't follow any rules, independently with miserly intelligence, forgetting that death will come, he forgets it and enjoys through material activities while looking at the faces of other similar people. So here he says, this verse explains the sentence, his senses joyful because of the pleasure arising from them. Gazing at their faces, he forgets about death. Okay, that is the verse from the 13th chapter, which is being decoded here in this particular verse. Nir avarodaha means not restricted by the rules of dharma, forgetting the time of death he enjoys. Again, if you go back to the 13th chapter, this verse again comes. Drumeshu ramsyan sutadharavatsalo vyavayadino vivashasvabandane क्वचित् प्रमादात् गिरिकन्दरे पतन् वल्लीं गृहीत्वा गजबीत आस्थितः. Enjoying in the trees, affectionate to sons and wife, miserable because of sex life, bound up there and helpless, he sometimes, out of inattention, falls into a mountain cave. Holding on to a creeper, afraid of an elephant, he remains dangling there. So this is what that verse says from the 13th chapter, the allegorical chapter. Enjoying in the trees, affectionate to sons and wife, and miserable because of sex life, and bound up and bound up and helpless. He sometimes, out of inattention, it is mentioned that this vanik or this merchant falls into a mountain cave. And while falling into a mountain cave, he finds a creeper and just to save himself, he holds that creeper. Because if he falls down, there is an elephant waiting there to kill him. So he holds on to that creeper and he remains dangling there. Okay. So what is this what is being described here? Okay, what is this which is being described here? He says, Kvachid Drumavad Aihikarteshu Griheshu Ramsyan Yata Vanaraha Sutadara Vatsalo Vyavaya Kshanaha. Sometimes he enjoys in houses which give material pleasure. Aihika Arteshu. That is the meaning of enjoying in the trees. So enjoying in the trees means enjoying in the houses which give pleasure. And which are like trees, just as the monkey, affectionate to sons and wife, has a festival of sex enjoyment in the trees. So in the same way, he also has a festival of sex enjoyment in the house. So this verse explains uh, enjoying in the trees. Drumeshu Ramsyan. Ramsyan means enjoying. Vyavaya Kshanaha means a festival of enjoyment with women. Vyavaya is conjugal enjoyment. एवं अध्वनि अवरुन्दानो मृत्यु गजभया तमसी गिरिकंदरे प्राये. On the path, he is restricted to sinful acts, and out of fear of death, he falls into ignorance, which is like a mountain cave. So, fa- so falling into ignorance due to fear of death is compared to falling into the mountain cave. With with this verse, sorry, it must not be with this verse explains the phrase, out of inattention he falls from a mountain cliff. This is being described. Out of fear of death, in ignorance, he is confined to performing sinful acts to prevent serious illness. In this way, he is absorbed in himself. Oh, again, I am coming to 11. I don't understand. We're already in 18. Oh, okay. I think some part of the 11th verse was not completed. So it is not in perfect chronology. So some part of the 11th verse is described later. So that is why this comes here. So it is mentioned that sometimes he is unable to counteract the cold, heat, wind, and rain. Sometimes while transacting business with others, he gains their enmity because of cheating them for wealth. Okay. So here, again, the explanation of this verse comes in this 34th verse of the 14th chapter. Kvachit शीतवातादि अनेक दैविक भौतिक आत्मीयानां दुःखानां प्रतिनिवारणे अकल्पः दुरंत विषय विषण्ण आस्ते. So he says, sometimes being unable to cope with the unlimited suffering caused by adhyatmic, adibhautic, and the adidaivic kleshas, such as cold and wind, he becomes depressed because of unending desire for sense objects. He has unending desire for sense objects. Okay. Uh, but there is severe restriction because the body is not cooperating, the mind is not cooperating. There are many natural calamities. Uh, uh, there is cold winters, rainy monsoon, and very hot summers, and so many other things due to adhyatmic, adibhautic, and the adidaivik kleshas. Unable to cope with the unlimited suffering, he becomes depressed. Uh, because he has unending desire for sense objects. So this verse explains the phrase, sometimes he is unable to counteract the cold, heat, wind, and rain mentioned in 5:13:11. Kvachin mito vyavaharan yatkinchit dhanam upayati vitta shatyena. Sometimes in mutual transactions, he obtains a little wealth by cheating. So this was also mentioned in 5:13:11. Okay. So then he continues. In the 12th verse of the 13th chapter, it was mentioned, Kvachit kvachit kshinadanastu tasmin shayyasanastana viharahinaha yachan parad apratilabda kamaha parakya drishtir labate avamanam. He says, in that forest devoid of wealth, without bed, chair, house, or ornament, he sometimes begs from others. Unsatisfied in his desires, desiring the wealth of others, he becomes disgraced. Okay. So because he does not get enough from begging from others, he desires others' wealth and he is consequently disgraced. Okay. So this verse is being explained here. He says, Kvachit kshinadanaha shayya asana adi upaboga vihino yavad apratilabda manorata upagata adane avasitamatihi tatastato avamanadini janad abhilabate. Hmm. Kvachit kshinadanaha, sometimes lacking wealth, and shayya asanadi ashanadi upaboga vihinaha. So sometimes he does not have sufficient wealth, so therefore he cannot afford proper furniture like bed, chair, etc. But yavad manorata upagata adane avasitamatihi. But he is very determined to somehow attain what he desires. But he still cannot attain it despite all the endeavors. So therefore, he encounters disrespect from others. People disrespect him because he is not able to materially do well. And he becomes very disturbed because of this disrespect of other people. Because of the disrespect of other people, he is completely distressed. So this verse explains devoid of wealth, without bed, chair, house, and amusement, he sometimes begs from others. Manoratha upagata adane means he is determined to take the wealth that he desires. Further, in the 13th verse of the 13th chapter, it was mentioned, Anyonya vitta vyatisanga vriddha vairanu bandho vivahan mitascha advanya mushmin urukrishta vitta badopasargair viharan vipannaha. This verse was also mentioned before, but a part of it was described in the 14th chapter earlier verse. A part of it is going to be described now. So he says, living with increased enmity because of business transactions for wealth, he marries. Wandering on the path, he almost dies because of great difficulties, loss of wealth, and the sickness that he encounters. So here, what does this talk about? He says, Evam vitta vyatisanga vivruddha vairanu bandhopi purva vasanaya mita udvahati ata apavahati. He says, Evam vivruddha vairanu bandhopi, having increased enmity with others. Why he has increased enmity with others? Vitta vyatisanga, because of transactions of money. So whenever there is money transaction, this will always lead to enmity, especially if the money transaction happens in the form of taking a loan. If we borrow money from others, it will 100% over a period of time lead to strained relationship. Therefore, it is ideally borrowing money is not at all good. It will always lead to trouble. Okay. Because borrowing money means you are trying to live a life which is beyond your means. This will come back to bite harder. Okay, this will come back to bite harder. So ideally, taking loans, rather it is the best course of action is to accept that this is the lifestyle that I am meant to live, and simplify the lifestyle and live a lifestyle based on whatever we can afford according to the money that we have. Okay. The ideal scenario is whatever money we get, not only we spend only that money, but also save for emergencies. So, which means one has to simplify one's lifestyle as much as possible to not only live with the money that one gets, but also save for future emergencies. Okay. Taking a loan is the worst thing. And worse than that is to borrow that money from one's own friends and relatives, which will definitely strain the relationship. Borrowing definitely strains the relationship. That's why, worst case, if at all we have to borrow, better borrow from impersonal entities like banks, etc. At least the personal relationship is not spoiled. Okay. So, having increased enmity with others because of transactions for money, he marries according to his previous karmas and then gives up that marriage. So this explains the sentence living with increased enmity because of business transactions for wealth, he marries. Apavahati means he again gives up that marriage because it was the marriage happened only because of wealth, you know, but he actually did not like that person. Okay. Again, in the 13th chapter, 19th verse, it was mentioned. Somehow he becomes free from danger and again begins to enjoy. Absorbed in the path by ignorance, a person wanders about till death and does not understand anything. So somehow he saves, he survives, but he does not learn his lesson. He again tries to live in the exact same way. Means he again enjoys pravritti marga. He does not know the Supreme Lord. Okay. Further, it is mentioned. So explaining this verse, it is mentioned. Again, there is not much. Yeah. He again begins to enjoy, means he again engages in the pravritti marga, which will perpetuate his stay in this material world. Uh, So here he says, Etasmin samsara admani nana klesha upasarga badita apanna vipanno yatra yastam uha va va itarastattra visrijya jatam upadaya shochan muhyan bibyad vivadan krandan samhrishyan gayan नह्यमानः साधुवर्जितो नैवावर्तते अद्यापि यत आरब्ध एष नरलोकसार्थोतम अध्वनः पारम उपदिशन्ति. So here it says, on the path of samsara, one is afflicted by various obstacles and sufferings. Giving up the persons who have encountered disaster and death and accepting those who are born. On the path of samsara, one is afflicted by various obstacles and sufferings. Nana klesha upasarga badita. Giving up the persons who have encountered disaster and death and accepting those who are born. So when one sees that another person is no longer useful for him in any way, one gives up that association, or that person may himself die. So and eventually is forced to give up the association. One starts accepting newer and newer, you know, association. So lamenting, becoming bewildered, fearing, quarreling, crying, rejoicing, thinking, being bound up by them, devoid of association with devotees, sadhu varjito. Na eva avartate, one does not escape. So the only solution is sadhu sangha. Sadhu varjito, not really having proper association of sadhus. He does not escape. Upadishanti. The wise people say that Advanaha Param, that the method of crossing over material existence, Tam, the is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mamevaya prapadyante mayametam tarantite. The wise say that the method of crossing over material existence is the Supreme Lord, from whom the material existence of the Jiva has arisen. Yata sarto yesha naraloka arabdaha, janmadhyasya yataha. On this path of samsara, one is afflicted by various obstacles and sufferings. Uh, and in the suffering, whoever cannot help one, they give up the association of such people. Okay. And they take the association of newer and newer people who are born. And lamenting, becoming bewildered, fearing, quarreling, etc., devoid of association of Vaishnavas. Because they don't have association of Vaishnavas, one cannot escape the samsara. So the wise say the only means of escaping samsara is to take shelter of Krishna. Mamevaya prapadyante mayametam tarante. So this verse explains the sentence, absorbed in the path by ignorance. A person wanders about and does not understand anything. Apanna vipannaha means receiving disaster and dying. Only in the association of devotees can one cross over the difficulties. The wise point out that the Supreme Lord, from whom the material existence has arisen, is the way to cross over material existence. Association with devotees is the cause. When one associates with the devotees, by that one gets attracted to the Supreme Lord, and by attraction to the Supreme Lord and worship of the Supreme Lord, one can escape samsara. Okay. So then, in the 13th chapter, further he said, O King Rahuguna, you are also absorbed in the material existence. So he said, Jadabharata said, you are also absorbed in material existence, making friends with all beings, renouncing the punishment that the king gives to others, taking the sword of knowledge that has been sharpened by devotional service to Lord, with mind detached from material enjoyment, cross over the material existence. This was the final instruction given by Jadabharata to Rahugana. He said, Rahugana, till now I was telling your story only. Okay, you are also caught up in this material existence. So uh, give up this. Don't become too attached. Don't become exclusively attached to your material designation as a king and become only absorbed um, in your kingly duties. Rather, take up to devotional service. Uh, Rather, take up to devotional service, taking the sword of knowledge that has been sharpened by devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Cross over this material existence. That's the final instruction given. Explaining this in this chapter. This was the verse spoken by Jadabharata in the previous chapter. Now, explaining this in this chapter, he says, Yadidam yoga anushasanam nava etad avarundate yan nyastadanda munaya upashamashila uparata atmanaha samavagachanti. Crossing material existence is attained by bhakti yoga and not by materialistic persons. Those who have given up violence to all beings, who are peaceful, who have controlled their minds, attain freedom from samsara. Okay. So crossing material existence is attained by bhakti yoga and not by materialistic persons. So this is the essence. Those who have given up violence to all beings, who are peaceful, who have controlled their minds, attain freedom from samsara. So the cause of not returning to the material world is described. Samavagachanti means they attain. So then he says in the 13th chapter again, the 15th verse we saw warriors who have conquered even the elephants of directions, but think in terms of mind. Surrounded by enemies, they all fall dead on the battlefield. So these may be great warriors. They can even fight with the Ashtadikgajas, the eight great elephants which are holding the Bhumandala steadily. The huge elephants. So these may be very, very great people, very valorous people who are capable of fighting with these Ashtadikgajas and even defeating them. But because they are completely absorbed in the mood of eye and mind, they all fall dead on the battlefield. They do not attain the abode attained by those who have renounced all material attachments and have no enemies. So those who are absorbed in enemies, thinking this is mine, this is not mine, he is my friend, he is my enemy, even though they may be very valorous, they are capable of fighting the elephants of the direction elephants, but still eventually they fall dead. They cannot live eternally. They fall dead on the battlefield. And after they die, they do not attain the same abode that is attained by those who have renounced all material attachments. So, explaining this verse, it is mentioned Yadapi dig iba jayino yajvino yevai rajarshayah kim tu param mride shairan asyam eva mameyam iti krita vairanu visrijya swayam upasamhritaha. Even though a person may be a conqueror of all directions, a performer of great sacrifices, or a sage amongst kings, lying on the battlefield on the soil which created enmity with others, by thinking, this earth is mine, he gives up the earth and then dies. Because his material attachment is not gone, he dies. But after dying, where he will go? He will come back to the same material world. So this verse explains warriors who have conquered even the elephants of the directions, thinking in terms of mind, surrounded by enemies, they all fall dead on the battlefield mentioned. Even though they conquer all directions, they lie on the earth, which created enmity by thinking it is mine. And giving up that earth, they die. Then, this verse we had already discussed. Uh, this verse we had already discussed, but a part of it was left over, and he is going to discuss that verse. Okay. So, enjoying in the trees, affectionate to sons and wife, miserable because of sex life, and bound up there and helpless, he sometimes, out of inattention, falls into a mountain cave. Holding on to a creeper and afraid of an elephant, he remains dangling there. So, what is this? What is that creeper and what is that elephant? कर्मवल्लीम् अवलम्ब्य तत आपदः कथञ्चित् नरकाद् विमुक्तः पुनरपि एवं संसार अध्वनि वर्तमानो नरलोकसार्थम् उपयाति एवं उपरि गतोपि. So he says, Karmavallim avalambya, taking support of the vine of karma, free of danger and hellish existence. Even if he attains Swarga, he remains on the path of samsara and again enters material existence. So, taking support, so that creeper which he catches hold of is the creeper of karma, free of danger and hellish existence. Even if he attains Swarga, but he still remains on the path of samsara only, and he again enters material existence. So, which means that creeper does not, it saves him only from the immediate danger, but not the ultimate danger of living in this material world. So this verse explains, holding on to a creeper, afraid of an elephant, he remains dangling there. Even though one may attain Swarga, one still treads the path of samsara. So 109 to 123. Okay, anyways, I think this last section we can take it on Monday. Okay, any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share, ask, add, we can take it right now. Yes, Shiv Kumar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanavad pranams, Prabhu.
Dhanavad.
Prabhu, two questions, Prabhu. Now, speaking of this suffering in the material world, I'm just trying to connect it to the topic that we have discussed, Prabhu, earlier, that suffering is neither an enabler for someone to take up bhakti nor a favorable existence. Life is an hindrance for taking up bhakti, is right, Prabhu. We have discussed that. So,
Yeah.
in that context, Prabhu, if somebody materialist is going through some intense suffering, now,
I would clarify that premise that you have presented,
yes,
and then you can build upon that.
yes,
I said material suffering
mm,
does not necessarily push one to take shelter of Krishna, but
mm,
it definitely pushes one to seek shelter.
mm, mm, mm,
And if during that time,
mm,
uh, if during that time, if he happens to meet a devotee,
mm,
then that material suffering acts as an impetus
mm,
to take shelter of that devotee.
mm, mm,
Okay.
mm, mm,
So the point is that
mm,
let's say someone is very hungry and he has no money.
mm,
He will go looking, and if he's in, let's say, if he's in a place like Vrindavan,
mm,
where there are many people who are doing free food distribution,
mm,
and uh, if he happens to come across
mm,
a free food distributor, then
mm,
he gets the food.
mm,
So you cannot say, so what would you say? Is his hunger the cause of his getting food, or if the distributor the cause of cause of his getting food?
mm,
Okay.
mm.
So you can say it's a combination,
Combination. Mm, mm, mm,
but the point is,
mm,
even if he was not hungry,
mm,
he would have gotten food.
mm,
So
mm,
but
mm,
even if he was extremely hungry, if there is no one distributing the food, he will not get. So the
mm, mm,
cause of bhakti,
mm,
you cannot actually, the ultimate cause of bhakti cannot be ascribed to a material situation.
mm, mm,
But the material situation can sometimes act as a catalyst.
mm, mm, mm.
It can act as a catalyst.
Okay. Mm,
That's
mm,
all. Yeah.
okay, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. In that context, Prabhu, two questions there. One, I see a pattern, Prabhu. Like, if in my experience, some of the friends are colleagues. Some of them seem to be reaching out to me when in distress. Some of them seek material shelter when they are distressed.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to understand what impels someone to reach out to devotees when in distress versus reaching out to material shelter when in distress, Prabhu. Any insight?
Well, there could be two reasons. One is he is approaching you because maybe they feel a personal shelter or some connection with you.
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
Or it is quite possible that they already have some sukriti.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
Jana sukriti no Arjuna.
mm.
That is why they are approaching you to
Okay,
seek some help.
okay.
But the other persons who are seeking material shelters,
Mm,
they may not have that sukriti, and
mm,
also they may not have that deep relationship with you. See,
mm,
just
mm,
because the relationship is there,
mm,
relationship is also of various types.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
Relationship does not necessarily mean that they think that you are subject experts.
Mm.
Like, for example, you may have a very good relationship with your mother,
Mm.
but when you are stuck up in coding,
Mm.
in writing a particular code,
Mm.
you will not go and take shelter of your mother.
Mm.
Okay. Because
Mm.
she is not a subject expert. So
Mm.
even some of your friends,
Mm.
they have a relationship with you,
Mm.
but they may not consider you as actually possessing the expertise to help them from the problem that they are suffering.
Mm. Mm.
And the other people who may approach you
Mm.
may not necessarily even be your friends,
Mm.
but they may consider you as subject experts.
Mm. Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So it is a very complex thing. You cannot give one answer to this.
Okay. Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
There
Mm.
could be Sukriti,
Mm.
there could be a kind of friendship,
Mm.
there could be uh, neither friendship, but
Mm.
they may consider you as subject experts.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
They may think that, oh, he is into spirituality.
Mm.
Maybe there is a solution to this,
Mm.
and they may approach you for that.
Mm. Mm.
So it is a very complex thing. You cannot tell for sure
Mm.
why they are doing it.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Prabhu. This is very deep insights. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Right. Okay. Uh, yes, Mother Gail.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Yeah, that analogy where the merchant was hanging on to the creeper of karma, I believe, right? The creeper was
Mhm.
karma,
Yeah.
and the elephant. Can you just review that analogy again? How, um, yeah, how he is hanging on to karma and what the elephant represents. Just repetition.
The elephant represents suffering, immediate suffering in that particular life. So he is holding on to the creeper of karma, which means he tries to take shelter of karma and tries to somehow escape the immediate suffering. But holding on to a creeper is not going to solve your permanent problem.
And
So
then
dangling, holding on to a creeper and dangling is not going to solve your permanent problem, because
uh-huh.
uh, uh, you will have to take birth again and continue the suffering. So that's what he says, that it's not going to give you a permanent solution. So that is what is
So
compared to holding on to the creeper and dangling due to the fear of elephant. The fear of elephant means immediate suffering. You want to escape immediate suffering, but you are not solving the permanent problem.
uh-huh. um when by hanging on to the creeper of karma, he's trying to solve his problem with good karma, of course, no? By
Yeah, yeah.
doing good
By
work.
some prayaschitta, I will do
Yeah.
some prayaschitta and try to, escape the immediate suffering. So he gets caught up in uh, resolving the immediate suffering while not finding a permanent solution.
And the elephant is used to just for the sake of the the amount, to represent like a big amount of suffering, no?
Probably, it's not very clearly explained
uh,
here, but probably, yeah,
oh, okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
correct. Yes, Shivakumar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Just one more question, Prabhu, I had. Now, when two or more people are coming together, Prabhu, in a circumstance, uh,
Mhm.
um, so I'm just trying to understand, like for example, let me pick this scenario, Prabhu. Like we have discussed, if somebody is leaving bhakti, it could be offenses that they are doing, and at some point they are leaving. And we also discussed about a case scenario where circumstances may push someone to leave bhakti also. So I'm just trying to understand, Prabhu, when we talk about the circumstance.
Well,
uh,
circumstances
uh,
will not force a person to leave bhakti altogether
okay.
because he has nothing against bhakti itself.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Mm,
So he may not leave bhakti altogether.
mm.
Only by offenses he will leave bhakti altogether.
Ah,
By circumstances, one may leave a particular sangha.
mm,
One may not leave. See, leaving bhakti altogether means losing faith in bhakti altogether.
mm,
Okay.
mm.
Temporarily, one may not be actively engaged in devotional service,
Ah,
but still they may possess faith. The faith may not be lost yet.
yes, Prabhu.
So ultimately, by circumstances, one will not leave bhakti completely.
Mm.
Uh, Only by offenses, one will leave bhakti completely.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. That's what I meant, Prabhu. Even on the positive side, like you talked about, somebody is hungry and somebody is distributing prasadam. It's a combination that he is getting sukruti in terms of taking a bhakti also, Prabhu, on positive
Yeah,
side of it. So I'm just
yeah.
trying to understand, Prabhu, when we talk about the circumstances, is it just a matter of chance, or is there Krishna's hand in it? Is something that I wanted to understand, Prabhu. Is there any insight?
Is there a you are talking about those who have not yet taken up to bhakti or those who have already taken up to bhakti?
In both the cases, Prabhu, when we say circumstances, is there a
Yeah.
hand, Krishna's hand in there?
Krishna's hand is not directly there when it comes to a non-devotee.
Mm.
That circumstance is purely dictated by the law of karma. Uh,
Mm.
and if and the presence of a devotee
Mm.
through that circumstance is only incidental. There is no Krishna's direct intervention there.
Mm. Mm.
If due to karma, if let's say someone becomes hungry
Mm.
and he's not a devotee, he becomes hungry.
Mm.
Why he becomes hungry and does not get food? Because of his karma.
Mm.
But right at that time, when a devotee comes and distributes prasadam,
Mm.
is it orchestrated by Krishna? No,
Mm.
it is not orchestrated directly by Krishna.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So then why he is getting food? His getting food is purely out of karma.
Okay.
Purely out of karma.
Mm. Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So it is just like the Uber app.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
The app itself is concerned about finding the nearest driver for you.
Mm.
The app is not interfering with whom you want as your driver.
Mm.
The
Mm.
app is concerned about getting the nearest driver.
Okay.
Now, if the nearest driver happens to uh, belong to your caste or your religion or
Mm.
your city,
Mm.
it is all highly incidental.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, it is all highly incidental.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
similarly,
Mm.
law of karma will find the nearest help.
Mm.
You want food, who is the nearest help?
Mm.
Now, that nearest person distributing food may happen to be a devotee who might be distributing prasadam. But
Mm.
law of karma is not concerned about that.
Mm. Mm.
But
Mm.
if he finds
Okay.
if the nearest food distributor happens to be a devotee, it is highly incidental
Mm. Mm. Mm.
according to law of karma.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, and
Mm.
you get prasadam. Why?
Mm.
Purely due to law of karma.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
but
Mm.
because it is prasadam,
Mm.
you get an opportunity to get some sukriti.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Mm. Thank you so much, Prabhu. This is a brilliant analogy, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Very much.
Hare. Okay. There are some questions in the chat box. Let's take some questions. What is a ghost? So the ghost was mentioned to be gold. And the imaginary city is the dream that is mentioned. If a jiva engages in pravritti marga, does he go to hell? Not necessarily. In pravritti marga, if he performs impious activities, he will go to hell. If he performs pious activities, he will go to heaven. Not necessarily he will go to hell. Okay, next question. We understand that taking loan will bind one to further misery and strained relationship. What about becoming their surety person when they take loan? That is even more dangerous. That is even more dangerous. Immediately you may think that the person is good. Okay. Immediately it will increase the relationship. But the moment the person is unable to pay the fine, if he is unable to repay the loan, they will come and catch hold of the person who has given him surety. When that happens, it more severely strains the relationship. So therefore, ideally, I mean, it is not 100% guaranteed that it will happen, but there is a very good chance. If he gives surety and the other person manages to successfully repay the loan, no problem. But if he is unable to repay the loan, then it will be a very severe strain of relationship. Okay, next question. How do we understand this since we know that Krishna is the cause of all causes? Understand what? How do we understand this means understand what? Because see, one thing, when you are typing questions in the chat box, please try to make the questions complete. Because it may happen that I may look at your question after 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 25 minutes. I will completely lose the context. So now what will I understand? Okay. How do we understand this? This means what? Since we know that Krishna is the cause of all causes. Now I totally don't understand what exactly. And the answer is the discussion which we just had. We had 2 or 3 discussions. Which discussion are we talking about? So please try to make the question complete. Otherwise it is not at all clear. The question that we had just now means which question? Which discussion? Okay. Okay. While he clarifies it, I will go to the next question. In textual Srila Prabhupada's translation, due to his pious activities in previous lives, the conditioned soul attains material facilities in this life. But when they are finished, he takes shelter of wealth and riches, which cannot help him in this life or the next. Because of this, he approaches the living dead who possess these things. Such people are compared to impure trees, creepers, and poisonous wells. Living dead means, a living person means when you ask something, he has to respond. He has to favorably respond. Okay. But if he does not respond, you go and ask him for some wealth, and if he is just not responding, only inanimate objects don't respond. So you say, hey, I'm asking you for so long, why are you standing like a stone? We say. I'm asking you for so long, why are you standing like a stone? So which means that is like living dead. The very fact that you are asking that question to him means you accept that he is living. But again, you are accusing him of being like a stone because he is acting like a dead person by not responding to your request. So these impious people, according to Prabhupada's explanation, they are like living dead means they are living, which means they are breathing, very clearly they are breathing, but dead because they are not responding to your request, just like an inanimate object, like that. Okay. Any other quick questions, comments, discussion points? Okay, yeah, Mother Gail.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, this is a subject that I don't know. I can't keep it straight. When a person does karma yoga, let's say sakama karma yoga, right?
Yeah.
And so they're performing their karma according to the Vedic injunctions.
Mhm.
So I'm just, is it, do they get karmic reactions for the karma that they perform?
They want karmic reactions because karmic reactions are pious also. And that pious karmic reactions are your currency to purchase any pleasurable things that you want.
Yeah,
So
so
you can't tell them that, oh, will you get karmic reactions? We say, of course, I want karmic reactions because
yeah,
that is the currency by which I'm going to enjoy.
yeah. So a person performing karma is binding to this world. Karma,
He
even
doesn't see
though
he doesn't see it as binding. He
no,
sees
but
that it's an opportunity for me to enjoy.
but it is binding. Even
Well,
because that's
it's like telling a person, who gets into Disney World and the one person says, oh, you're completely bound by the Disney World. The other person feels, what do you mean bound? You know, I am having the greatest fun of my life. Why are
yeah,
you calling it bound? So
yeah. But
the
people in
usage of
knowledge
the
know. People in
yeah,
knowledge know
yeah,
that it is
yeah,
binding.
yeah. So for the people in knowledge are definitely not the Sakama Karma Yogis. So they don't see
Oh
it as
yeah,
being bound. Uh,
no. They no, yeah, yeah. I understand. The reason why is a continual source of confusion for me is because they are following Vedic injunctions. They're not acting whimsically to
yeah,
get there.
that's why they are getting what they want.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
That's why they are rewarded
mm-hmm.
with what they want. What they want is piety, uh,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
which they can purchase the pleasure that they want. And that's
right.
exactly what they get.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we
Okay.
see it as punishment. We are thinking, are they are following the Vedic injunctions, why they should be bound? But they are
Mm-hmm,
seeing it very
mm-hmm,
differently. Thank you very
mm-hmm.
much. I did it right and you gave me what I wanted. So,
All right.
yeah,
Okay. Great. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Mhm.
Okay. So now there is a clarification of the question. How do we understand in the context of when we were discussing that when a person is hungry and he gets prasadam and meets a devotee, how do we know that Krishna is the cause? We know that Krishna is the cause of all causes. How do we know that it is not orchestrated by Krishna? Well, Krishna is the cause of all causes. Yes, that is true. Law of karma is also under the vigilance of Krishna, under the control of Krishna. But Krishna does not personally say that this prasadam should go to this living entity so that he can get some sukriti. Then the problem that comes is partiality of Krishna. The problem that comes is partiality of Krishna. So now, is Krishna partial? You will say, no, Krishna is not partial. Then the problem is why the whole world is not devotee yet. Because if the living entity gets prasadam, definitely he will get some sukriti, and that when that sukriti accumulates, then when that sukriti accumulates, he will become a devotee. So by now, so you may say, why is Krishna not orchestrating it? Well, there is lot of sukriti needed, correct? Well, if Krishna wants the whole everyone to become a devotee, is he not omnipotent? Is it impossible for him to ensure that every living entity gets abundant sukriti from the devotees and immediately become devotees? It is possible. If Krishna is omnipotent, if he is omnibenevolent, if he wants every living entity to become a devotee, and if he is capable of arranging everything for the living entities, by now, uh, the, all the living entities in all of the world, they must have become devotees. But that is not the case. Only a microscopic minority, minuscule people, number of people are becoming devotees. So therefore, you cannot, yes, Krishna is still the cause of all causes, being the indirect cause of the law of karma, the functioning of the law of karma. But he does not directly intervene. Say, okay, he is hungry, this living entity has to get prasadam. That is not directly decided by Krishna. That is the desire of the devotee. When the devotee desires, Krishna may facilitate it. But otherwise, no, he does not directly intervene. Okay, I think we have to pause here. Sham Sundar Prabhu always raises his hands right when it is time to wind up. So, sorry, Prabhu, we can take your discussion point on Monday. So, Monday we have just a few slides left. Monday I will try to complete the chapter a little early so that we can have extra time for question and answers. Those of you who have burning questions, please do join on time so that we can have the discussion. Okay. I will quickly recap the chapter and then we have just a few slides left. I will quickly complete those slides so that we can have discussion on Monday. Thank you very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Did we? Okay, we did.